were asking the question, is the New York Liberty Sabrina Ionescu's team now?
Wait, there's no chemistry at all. We're like Shaq and Kobe minus all of the talent and skill.
Who's that bish? Phoebish is that fish on that team.
Hello! Is that how Jason does it? I don't know. Not as good.
It's lucrative, bro. Like, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be bananas. Like, it's crazy, man. He ain't going to be soft in New York. We're going to make him hard, man. Like, it's going to be crazy. So I think they've settled on it, too.
Sometimes the universe sort of aligns for you. This entire WNBA season, we have been building toward an Aces Liberty showdown that we knew was going to happen in the playoffs. We also knew Jason, fervent Liberty fan, was going to be absolutely obnoxious if and when the Liberty happened to win a game or two, or possibly the series against the Aces. So I was dreading this possible thing that has actually happened. And then it turns out, as luck would have it, God's favorite, he reached down, he touched me on the forehead, and he said, actually, we planned this months in advance. Jason is going on vacation. So he is not here this week for this show. Thank God I don't have to listen to him cackling and crowing on about Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu. He's out of here. We have a new person in his place, the incredible, the wonderful, the brilliant Elle Duncan, ESPN anchor, SportsCenter host, WNBA Countdown host, College Game Day host, Around the Horn panelist, podcast host of the Elle Duncan Show. Elle, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Shea, it is a character flaw of mine that anytime someone introduces me, I hear like the Jamaican air horns in my head. Burr, 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 burr. So I'm going to do that as I intro myself. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so glad for you that you don't have to deal with his gloating.
I am so glad. I don't know where he is. I hope he's rotting away in hell is where I hope Jason is right now. But he's on vacation. What is the, so this is, I mean, you and I met a couple of years ago, very briefly. And then now we're going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour chit-chatting or whatever. Yeah. I'm curious, what's the Elle Duncan story? Let's go from college to now. How does one become who you have become in the industry?
All right, Cliff Notes version. Failed wannabe actress, left college early to go and move to LA during pilot season because no one's ever done that. 6 months later, no agent, ran out of money, came back with my tail tucked between my legs, working at a hair salon going, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? And I didn't want to go back to school. So I got a job doing entertainment reporting on a sports radio show in Atlanta. Then that ultimately led to me doing hip hop radio in Atlanta for like 8 years, but sports was always calling me. And so I sidelined for the Atlanta Hawks. I did Comcast Sports South and was like covering SEC and ACC football. Moved to Boston because that's how much I believed in my dream. A black girl from Atlanta moving to Boston. God bless America. Worked for the Red Sox for a bit. And then, exactly, thank you. Not all heroes wear capes. And then I ended up at ESPN, just a few years removed from being a traffic reporter. But that's the thing to know, Shea. There are still people. I love Atlanta. My city goes hard for me and I go hard for my city. But there are people in Atlanta still to this day that would literally tell you, yeah, Elle Duncan, the traffic girl, and have no idea what I'm doing right now as it stands. None. I just do traffic.
So out of all that, the thing that jumped out at me, the thing I'm most curious about, of course, the career is incredible, but what time period were you doing hip hop radio in Atlanta?
Oh,
what stretch was this?
In the good, like trap music, snap music, like 2003 to about 2011 is when I was doing
that's an incredible era. That's when
a really good era.
That's when they sort of took over. Like, I think by the end of that first decade in 2000s, it was just everybody went, okay, well, Atlanta they're in charge now. They're running things.
100%.
That was a great time.
Yeah.
So you were there during,
something to say.
Yeah, you were there during, let me see. If they're in that period, I mean, the Young Jeezy rises to. Oh my God, that's Thug Motivation 101 is one of my favorite albums of all time of any genre. It's just such a good album. Did you ever meet Young Jeezy?
I did. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Is he wonderful?
Yeah, he was a cool guy. I would say that like out of my favorites in terms of who was just like the most real, Rick Ross was really.
Rick.
Luda's my guy. I love Luda, but Jeezy was fire. And like Boys in the Hood at the time, just all of them. Like Block ENT and Block was wild. He was a wild man. He was one of those guys that like, if he heard that you were saying things about him on the radio, even if it was second, third, or fourth account, he would pull up on you at the radio station and he would confront you about them. So it was wild times. You really had to watch what you said. T.I., was at his peak at that time when I was doing hip hop radio. It was definitely like, I think for so long it was like an LA, New York thing, as you know, when it came to hip hop. And like that was the first time where people were like, oh, I think that hip hop is centered in Atlanta.
Yeah. And the South has had it ever since then. Yeah. You ripped it away and we're not giving it back.
Never.
All right. You want to start the show?
Let's do it.
From Wondery, I'm Shea Serrano.
And I'm Elle Duncan.
And this is 6 Trophies. Hello! Is that how Jason does it? I don't know. Yeah. Not as good. I'm Shea Serrano, and welcome to 6 Trophies, a podcast series hosted by myself and Jason Concepcion typically, but he's on vacation this week, so we have Elle Duncan in his place, in which we comb through all the basketball news from the past week and then hand out 6 pop culture themed trophies for 6 basketball related activities. This episode, the Liberty pushed the Aces to the brink. Boo. Boo, I'm Zuri. The New York Knicks have their very own bodega cat. Who wrote that? Zuri, did you write that? That's good, Zuri. Bodega cat? You wrote that?
It was in the ether online, but I did put it in the.
Zuri invented it. You invented it. Just say you invented
it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's me.
We honor the great Dikembe Mutombo. All that and more. Let's hand out some trophies. Yes. Anyway, we do 2 sets of trophies, the big trophies and the little trophies. The big trophies are first. These ones are the same every week. First up, the Denzel Washington and Training Day trophy, given out to whoever it is who had the best overall performance of the week. This week's winner, revenge. The Liberty up 2-0 against my beloved Aces. What a disaster. What a disaster this is, Elle. Elle, do you have a rooting interest in this series? Like, is there a team you prefer to win this series?
No, man. We are in the business of just the best matchups. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little disappointed. This is the semis matchup. The Aces didn't help us out there by being the 4th seed. I think, I'm always interested in storylines, and obviously a three-peat for the first time since the Comets won 4 straight. The inaugural 4 years would be pretty dope.
That would have been great.
Just not just the Liberty, because I think, you guys have certainly talked about this, and it's been said ad nauseum, the idea that the Liberty are one of 4 franchises to have been in 5 championships, and every single one of those other franchises has won at least 3 championships, and they have 0. It's not just that, but just the idea that they could be the team to return a basketball title back to the basketball capital of the world for the first time since 1973. Like those are both really great storylines, but man, in the interest of being right, Shea, and I like being right, I predicted a few weeks ago that I thought the Aces this year were going to be like the Chiefs last year. Right? Like we were like, oh, they're the most gettable they've ever looked. Like they're so gettable. Someone's going to beat them. And every week I picked against them. And then ultimately they won. And I felt really stupid. How do you pick against the Chiefs? So I kind of was riding that. Like I think this Aces team can, right? I think they could be the Chiefs. Like they're going to turn it on. They're going to find this other gear. They're going to, the point guard, Chelsea Gray's going to step up and all these people are going to step up. And Tiffany Hayes is going to prove that it was like such a great move getting her back into the fold. And man, we just have not seen it. To quote Becky Hammond, Shea, they kind of lost their edge.
Mm-hmm. It's not that much fun. It's not that much fun watching and them losing. For the past 2 years, every time they've stepped on the court for a playoff series, I felt like I can rest easy. This is going to be a fun thing to watch, but I can rest easy. We're going to get out of here with a victory. And then nope. Game 1, Breanna Stewart looked like the best basketball player on the planet. It's like 34 points, 12 and 19 shooting, 5, 4, and 2. Sabrina was incredible. Then in game 2, Sabrina again is their best player. She has looked terrifying. I tweeted this at the start of the playoffs when they were playing Atlanta that she just looks like she's not going to lose. Like she wants that ring on her finger so bad. She wants that crown on her head so bad. I think she saw what everybody was saying about after they lost last year and any of the criticism she has faced up to this point in the league. And she was like, all right, it's time to put all of those in a fucking casket and then set that casket on fire. Because she has looked terrifying, just like intimidating in a way that not a lot of players are when they get on the court.
It was interesting because I was having some conversations about Sabrina a couple of weeks ago to just basketball heads and people that obviously love the game. And they were saying that, this postseason is going to tell a lot about Sab just because she is probably the most talked about player, apart from Caitlin Clark, of course. But she is the most talked about player, the most sort of promoted player, the most marketed player to have never won anything, not at the college level, not at the pro level. And that this felt like the year that she was going to either be motivated to sort of match all of that, right, with an actual title or not. And she has been, to your point, there's just this look on her face. Like I'm watching her last night and she just looked like she was in serial killer mode. And in the fourth quarter alone, she scored or assisted on 16 of their 19 points. Like she just was like, when the Aces tried to storm back a little bit and make it interesting, it was like, she's like, not today, devil. Like I am not going to let this happen. And you could see it. You could see it. And now we're doing the thing, Shea, where we're asking the question, is the New York Liberty Sabrina Ionescu's team now? Which I still think is like way too far. But yeah, man, she's been ridiculous.
I remember when she was in Oregon, I think it was her junior year. I went up to Oregon. I booked a speaking gig at the University of Oregon just because I wanted to go to a Sabrina Ionescu basketball game, and just the way that she walked around in that arena, she looked like by that point she knew she was lording over basically all of college basketball. She hadn't won a championship, but that was the year that they were supposed to win or going to win. And she goes into her senior year, and then the COVID happens. She didn't get to play in the tournament because it got canceled. But just watching her walk around there, I remember being like, oh fuck, she runs this whole facility. This is her gym, and she has that same sort of walk about her now on the New York Liberty court or on any WNBA court that she walks onto. She's like, she just looks like she is going to run that place. And man, she's killing me. She's my favorite player in college. And then now I'm rooting against her. And it's like, well, this side of it sucks. This is not that great.
I don't like this for you or for me. You know what? Nobody wanted to give any respect to the Atlanta Dream, and that's fine. Like they snuck into the playoffs, and I get all of that, and they would be a lotto pick if they haven't traded or given away their pick. But what told me that this might be a different postseason for Sabrina was statistically, that was actually the worst team for her statistically. She, I think, averaged like 12 or 13 points per game against them for her career against the Dream. For some reason, they had her number, and when she was putting up 20 balls against them, I was like, okay, she's taking this thing over. I think what's more surprising, because when you sort of look at last year, when we talk about this revenge factor for Stewie, a lot of the issue was that they had to lean on Stewie so much last year that by the time she got to the postseason, it was like she was basically out of steam, right? And so when you needed her to be at her best, she wasn't able to because she had to carry so much of the load. But this year, Stewie's playing lights out. You've got Sabrina playing lights out. You've, of course, got Jonquil Jones. People always forget when they're talking about, the
former
MVPs
MVP.
She's a former MVP. It doesn't hurt when you got the three of them putting up 68 points. But on top of that, I love that this postseason, people are realizing who's that bish. Phoebish is that bish on that team. A rookie who's brought so much to that team. It's like every single time they need a stop or they need a play or they need, someone to take a charge. Like she has been fantastic for them. And then last night it was Slew, who loses her starting role and still comes in and like every time in that first half they needed a bucket, in particular that second quarter, which I think is where the Aces lost it, Shea. She came in. They're just so complete. They have so much depth and they can rely on any single one of them. Stewie was a facilitator last night and comfortable doing it after, like you said, scoring 36 points in game one. After the last couple of games, as much as I like to be right, I'm like, this team looks unstoppable. They seem like a team that's only going to lose if they beat themselves.
Yeah, I was running from it all season. They just looked They looked mean. They didn't look mean last year. They look mean this year. When Courtney hit that goofy falling down and one on Tiffany Hayes, I was like, oh, fuck, we're going to lose this game. Like a little thing happens in a game and you go, all right, well, here we go. I still believe, though. I still believe, Elle. Aces in 5.
All right, so Shea, we do this thing on SportsCenter, especially when it's our product and we want to convince people to watch. We do this thing where we like give them a little nerd note, like a bright side, half cup, half full type of thing. So I pulled one for you, okay? Because as we all know, nobody has ever in a best of 5 in the W fallen down 2 games to none and come back and win. However, are you ready for this nerd note?
I'm ready. Give it to me.
All right. New York has won the first 2 games by a combined 14 points, right? So of those 18 previous times that no one's ever come back, and 4 of those previous 18 times, there was only a combined margin that small. So most of these teams that fall 2-0 are getting absolutely trounced. And the only time that a team rallied to force a game 5 after being in a 2-0 hole was the Mercury and the Storm in the 2018 semifinals. So it is very conceivable and possible that the Aces could be the team to finally do this. We've seen it in the NBA. We've seen it recently in the NBA. And I don't know, the odds just tell me that we could actually see this happen. I think the Aces are going to win game 3 at home. I do. And I think Becky calling them out and none of them clapping back at her, basically all of them sort of saying, yeah, no, we've lost our edge. People are angry at us. We're celebrities. We're in commercials and we need to do more. Like, I think that's going to be a motivating factor. Pissed off Asia. Like watching her miss a couple of layups last night towards the end, I was like, this is just not characteristic. Tiffany Hayes missing a free throw, which she's a 70% shooter, but it just felt like there were so many times where the Aces team that we've grown accustomed to seeing just wasn't able to do that thing and get that play to put them over the edge. I see them winning game 3. I don't know about the rest, but I think game 3.
Oh, that's all I need is one game. Just put a little pressure on them and see what happens. Just a little bit of pressure. When Asia missed the layup at the end of the game to tie it, she got free. She gets a shoulder pass to her defender. She's going up, and then just bonks off the other side of the rim. I had like post-traumatic stress disorder flashbacks to Tim Duncan doing that in the 2013 finals. Yes. He had the bunny and it missed it and it bounced off, and I was like, oh my God, it's all happening again. My life is falling apart. What a fucking disaster. I'm so glad Jason's not here.
Yeah, well, to that, if I can hop in here, to that end, I just want to point out, in our 6 trophies text thread, Jason did say, hey guys, I am on vacation, but I just wanted to say the Aces look like shit. And
awesome.
and he also did leave. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, but he did leave us a message that I want to play for you guys now. And he recorded this after game 1.
I do not want to hear this.
Not much to say about a dominating New York Liberty performance, other than still early. Games yet to go. Game 2 is obviously a must-win situation for the Aces. Who looked absolutely washed, tired, exhausted in game 1. And I love to see that.
It's been an hour of this bullshit.
Everybody who had a chance to get on the bandwagon, Jasmine Watkins, our guest co-host last week, had a chance to get on, didn't get on. All of you will rue the day. Go Liberty.
Thanks for nothing, Zuri. Really appreciate it. Next trophy. The Lauryn Hill, you might win some, but you just lost one trophy. Give it out to whoever it is at the worst overall performance of the week. This week's winner, the Chicago Sky, for firing Teresa. What are you doing? Why are you firing Teresa? What's going on? Your head coach 1 season in, Elle, and they get rid of her? What happened here? What's the story?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I've heard a lot of things. And so putting it into two different buckets, right? So we look at the obvious bucket, which is just the complete frustration and outrage, right? Like, how are you supposed to have someone change an entire culture when you give them less than a year to do it? And on top of that, This is not exactly like a team that's been a destination, not for coaches and not for players. They've had a lot of people leave since they won that chip in 2021. One of your lotto picks is gone half the year with injury. And then, of course, your other lotto pick ends up having to close out her season a couple of weeks early with an injury. You clearly are in a rebuild. And you know what tells me that? That you traded one of your best offensive players away to the Sun right before the All-Star break. All of those things, and then you still decide that you're going to move on from somebody, and it feels as if, it's too early. And I get all of those things. Conversely, if I'm playing devil's advocate, you say, if you're the ownership of this guy, right, or at least you wonder, maybe you don't like the way the culture is going. So before someone can actually help build that culture that you think is not heading in the right direction anyway, you rip the Band-Aid off and you bail. And I'm sort of, from what I'm hearing sort of both sides of those tales. Again, I think that Teaspoon deserved, with her resume, with her background, with who she is and what she's meant to this game, I think she deserved better, period. In particular, because Chicago is not known for having the best ownership or an ownership that's invested in the product and spending money. And for all the reasons that I listed before, if you believe the New York Times, there was only 2 people interested in this job to begin with, Teaspoon being one of them. But I think on the other side, you look a little bit at some of those exit interviews that I don't think were coincidentally leaked, where the players just felt like she was in over her skis, or that the scheming wasn't there and the way that she was coaching wasn't good. Now, again, playing devil's advocate, you say, okay, well, you get better with time at those things, right? Like, she would be on a long list of coaches that have been fired after 1 year that potentially go on to do really big things. I think maybe the one that comes to mind the most is like a Bill Belichick, right? Fired by the Browns after a year, and then he moved on. But I think that Angel Reese gave us a little bit of a hint of that when, about a week before she was fired, she was like, I told Teaspoon the biggest mark against her is that she was just too nice. And there are very strong personalities that are in that locker room. And I don't know, it just feels like, though, this is not how you, get anyone to come and play there when you clearly need some pieces because you are rebuilding, and B, bailing on somebody after, frankly, she over-indexed on what she was given. She got great stuff out of Camilla. She got great stuff out of Angel Reese. She coaxed one of the best seasons out of Kennedy Carter that we've seen. And to bail on that when they clearly had such an affinity for her, it's especially when they're young and now they're right away going to have to be dealing with a new system and a new approach. It just feels too early.
It definitely feels too early. Hearing Angel talk about Teresa after the firing and just like how much she meant to her, and it felt like you don't know what's going on in the locker room, but it felt like, oh, this is the type of coach who, give her 2 years, maybe 3 years, and all of the players are going to feel this exact same way about her because she has that experience. She has that thing of like it's very meaningful when you can sit down with somebody who has done a thing you want to do. We're talking about a 5-time All-Star, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 4-time All WNBA player. Like, she's had the career that so many of these young players would like to have. And if you can have that person sit there, shoulder to shoulder in the locker room and like say some words to you, like, that means a tremendous amount. I have to assume Teresa had an incredible impact on the season that Angel Reese put together. As you mentioned, having her link up with Kennedy Carter, I thought that was a great pairing right there. Like, what are we doing? Like, why? What are you doing? As you mentioned, this is not how you get other people to want to come there. Be like, oh, they were clearly on the up. They're coming up. They're coming. If the injuries don't happen, they make the playoffs. That's what would have. They would have been a playoff team this year.
Yes.
Without the injuries. What are we doing?
Even with the injuries, Shea, right? Like, they were up until the last week of the season, they were in the playoff hunt. Like, despite the fact that the front office, when they traded away Marina Mabry, were like, oh, we're firmly in rebuild mode. I mean, we were scratching our head like, why are you trading? You only have a handful of people on this team that average double digits. Why would you trade one of them away? This doesn't make literally any sense. And so to us, it validated the idea that they're not thinking about this year. They're thinking about next year and beyond. But then you fire Spoon. But honestly, like, we saw that in LA with Kurt Miller. He was only there for a couple of seasons, and we saw the reaction from, De'Erica Hamby and some of the other players that were just like, this is inexplicable to me. Like, he's gotten us to where we are. Like, he's helped build a culture here. He lost Cameron Brink. Like, 10 seconds into the season. And clearly we are also a rebuilding team. I just think it speaks to the idea of how much chaos we create in these young players' careers very early on, and the impact that that can have when right away they're having to deal with coaching changes. And for, frankly, and it's no disrespect to the Chicago front office, but your franchise is Angel Reese. She's a huge part of the face of your franchise. She's going to be the reason that people continue to buy tickets and come. And so frankly, not at least wanting to make sure that she was happy just felt a little bit head scratching to me. So yeah, this is a bummer, especially, like I said, because of everything that Teresa Weatherspoon has given the game. It just felt like her leash should have been a little longer.
Absolutely. What a disaster. That's how you win the Laurel Hill. You might win some, but you just lost one trophy by firing Teresa Weatherspoon.
Congrats.
Next trophy. The Dominic Toretto I Live My Life a Quarter Mile at a Time trophy, given out to whoever it is who made a short-term decision with no regard for future consequence. This week's winner, any Knicks fan who at any point mocked Karl-Anthony Towns, which I have to assume was every single Knicks fan. Zuri, Jason sent a clip in from his vacation of the Liberty Aces series. I have to imagine he sent one about this.
I don't even know if I asked him for this one. I think it just popped onto my phone as soon as the trade happened. But yeah, here's Jason on the trade.
Okay.
Huge trade sends Karl-Anthony Towns in shocking fashion from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the New York Knicks.
That sounds terrible.
Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo head west. My reaction, first, shock. I was shocked. Surprise, depression, fear. Has Leon Rose overcooked it? I wondered. But I'm a fan, so I talked myself into it. And here's what I think now. First of all, I've given Karl-Anthony Towns a lot of shit over the last season and a half for various things.
Yes, you have.
For incredibly dumb fouls and decisions that he makes on the court, for saying that he is the greatest shooting big man of all time.
Oh, man.
I still disagree with that. It's not like he has no case, but I disagree with it. So let me just say this, how I feel about the trade now, as things stand.
He's talking
currently.
himself into it.
To quote one of my group chats who used this metaphor, I feel like pre-trade the Knicks had an 85 team in 2K. To put this into 2K terms, the Knicks had an 85 overall team with 93 chemistry, maybe even 95 chemistry. Post-trade, we have a 91 overall team with 83 chemistry. And it's really about raising the ceiling. So that's how I feel about it. That starting five.
Are those
Jalen,
seagulls in the background that I'm hearing?
Right. Or pigeons.
Bridges.
Is he living in a park?
That's gonna be something. Tom Thibodeau is gonna have to evolve on various levels as we go forward. But I'm excited, and I love it.
Zuri, how long does that clip go on? Because that was already we've heard enough. It's like 45 minutes long.
I think he's still talking. I just
kept it going. Elle, how do you feel about this trade? Are you pro-trade, anti-trade for this particular one?
I like the trade just because I do think they lost depth, but they got more talent back. Like, I know that Julius Randle is like the perfect Knick. if you could come up with a Knick player, it would be Julius Randle. But his defense was spotty, and I think when you're talking about a Knicks team that has figured out their bona fide superstar, but needed that one thing, what did they need in the postseason this year? They needed a big man that could space the floor, and I think it takes a little pressure off of Mitchell Robinson, and all of the good basketball things. But my biggest concern here is, how do you replace White Dante? I mean, for a bevy of reasons. The swag, the contributions off the bench, that's where I think they got worse, was the depth part of this. And in particular, my favorite part of this storyline right now, Shea, is how people spent about 3 or 4 minutes on the basketball part of it, right? The part that I just did, right? Like what it means for this roster and like what he could do and his perimeter shooting and defensively, how much better they get. And then right away, it became this like defense of him not being soft. It's like, oh, the kid Merrow's weighing in and he's saying he talked to him and like the guy's going to be wearing Tim's before tomorrow and like he's going to be so New York. He's going to be the most New York version of New York you've ever seen. And I love so much that we are trying to make Cat New York Cat. It's like, let this man live. I'm so mad at Jimmy Butler, Shea. Like, this is such an example of Jimmy Butler 6 years ago called this man soft because he was pissed off that he got paid and Jimmy hadn't gotten paid. And that moniker has stuck with this man since then. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a guy being like, yeah, I could post you up or I could just shoot the lights out of this thing from deep and get my points that way too. There's nothing wrong with that. But the idea that now everyone's having to sort of do this PR cycle that Cat is tougher than we all think is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think on a personally speaking, I guess not regarding basketball, but just as a human, to have a career as long as he's had, you have to be tough. There's toughness that's baked in there. I think the difference here is it's not loud tough like the way Dante is loud tough.
Yeah.
Like just if you had never watched basketball before and you watched the Knicks and the Timberwolves play a 7-game series, you would walk away from that series and you would say to yourself, okay, the big guy, that's a better basketball player. He's clearly a better basketball player, but I feel a little safer with Dante. Like that's what, you know what I mean? That's
yes.
The feeling that you get. And when the trade first happened, my initial reaction was this was a disaster. This is a terrible mistake for the Knicks. They just put all these pieces together to have the Nova Knicks. They don't even give them a chance in one season. Like, what are we doing? But the further we got away from it, the more I started to feel like, all right, to your point, the one main criticism of Karl-Anthony Towns, separate of the like silly fouls that he commits, but the one main criticism was the thing you're mentioning of he's not a guy you're afraid of. You're not afraid of Karl-Anthony Towns. When he's on the Knicks, though, you don't need to be afraid of him. You have Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson will do the scary stuff when the game on the line, get the ball into Jalen's hands. That's why Karl-Anthony Towns was so good in Minnesota with Anthony Edwards. You have the guy that you're afraid of. You don't need another guy that you have to be afraid of here. I think it might work out pretty well. I feel good. I feel good about it, Elle. I've talked myself into it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if you want someone that is like, bordering on psychopathic, you have James Dolan, Knicks fans. Like you don't even need anyone on the like your owner is nuts. Like so it's fine. I like it for that reason. If you believe some of the rumors, maybe White Dante felt some kind of way about the Villanova Knicks with Mikal Bridges coming in and was concerned about what that would look like for him, and they felt like this was probably going to be the best thing for him was to move on. But yeah, like I love that in the same way that Jason talked himself into it over the course of that 15 to 20 minute video. I think he's probably still talking. It started out as like, how could you? It's Julius Randle, it's White Dante, like they're so Knicks, like they are us, they are the version of players that we like, they got that dog in them. But over time, I think they've started to come to the term, to the fact that like Karl-Anthony Towns is a better player, and specifically for what you all need, you take the pressure off Mitchell Robinson, who's coming off of surgery, and you allow to get the floor spacing, which is something that you really need. And now they're like, it's lucrative, bro. Like, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be bananas. Like, it's crazy, man. He ain't going to be soft in New York. We're going to make him hard, man. Like, it's going to be crazy. So I think they've settled on it too.
Next trophy. The Daniel Plainview, I've abandoned my child, I've abandoned my boy trophy, which is given out to a player team who gave up on something. This week's winner, the Connecticut Sun, for abandoning the possibility of a sweep. They won game one, and I thought, Minnesota might be in trouble here. And then fucking Minnesota does what they do. That was such a good game. Who do you have winning this series right now?
This is tough. I mean, I do think that it says something when Nafisa Collier goes from like one of the greatest 2-game stretches in the postseason we've ever seen to largely being, contained. I think if you're Steph White, you're going, wow, like we held Nafisa Collier to a handful of points and we still lost this game. That should be concerning in and of itself. And I think it does sort of belabor the point that the Lynx are just so incredibly deep. You know, again, this sort of the same way that we mentioned with the Liberty. Last night it was Courtney Williams doing a little bit of everything. Bridget Carleton can get you a bucket whenever you need. Like, they are incredibly deep. They're sort of like, you know what's funny is, and I think that, you know, you'd be the person to tell me or not, a lot of the comparisons we keep making is that this Lynx team is a lot like those Spurs teams, where it wasn't necessarily flashy. It was just good old-fashioned sharing the ball, great defense, spacing the floor, being able to have anyone that can get, you know, a shot from deep, great interior defense, like all of the things that aren't sexy at all. They're not logo shots and all of those things, but that's why this team is so dangerous. But on the other hand, Shea, like, you were sort of playing with house money if you were Connecticut last night. You weren't expected to go in there and punch him in the mouth in that first game. You still really haven't gotten a contribution from Bree Jones right now, who's an integral part of them, you know, finally being able to be the bride and not the bridesmaid. And so I'm going to go with the Sun here. I'm going to go with Sun. I know. I'm going to go with a Sun Liberty matchup that finally means one of these original teams is going to hit the championship that has escaped them. Just because when we talk about dogs, like, the Sun got them dogs on them. They do. Starting with Marina Mabry and punctuated by Alyssa Thomas. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm trying to talk myself into the Sun because I think if the Liberty and the Lynx play, the Liberty run away with it. It's just,
I agree.
They have too much. They're just too intimidating right now. And if you know nothing else about the Connecticut Sun, you know that they're not going to miss a shot because they're afraid. They're just going to miss a shot because they miss a shot. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Watching them last night, especially, there was a great moment where Kayla McBride decided she had enough of Marina Mabry's shit, and just put a shoulder into her a little bit. Here, let me score on you and let me run into you. And then they're both mad at each other, but Marina walked away laughing, like she knew she had done what she wanted to do, which was get in her head a little bit. You know, the Lynx going to win that game, but still, Marina Mabry she's been a breakout player this postseason.
Yeah.
Between her and DJ on the perimeter and Dewana as well, like, they just turn it into a torture chamber. You have Alyssa Thomas down there banging down low, bodying anybody who comes near her. They're just, I don't know. They're just intimidating. They're scary. You have to beat them. They're not going to score a ton of points, but you're not going to score a ton of points either. And can the Lynx win 3 low scoring games is what it's going to come down to. And I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can. It's, you know, we mentioned Fee had 9 points last game.
Yeah.
She had 87 points in game 1 of whatever the other shit, whatever it was. And then 9 points this time. And again, they still won, but I don't know. I feel like I want the Sun to win. So I'm trying to talk myself into saying they're going to win.
I think that there are a lot of basketball heads that are 100% in agreement with you, that they think it would be a better series if it was the Sun and the Liberty, despite all of the things that I just said were great about the Lynx. And keep in mind, too, with the Sun, they don't have their starting point guard right now, right? Like, Ty Harris is still hurt, which is why Marina Mabry's had to come off the bench. But I couldn't help but watch that game and think, I wonder where all these think pieces are going to be on whether the league is too physical, as I watch all of these girls fight each other and get chippy and push each other. I can't wait to see who pops up at the press conference and asks, are you guys picking on each other? And curiously, Shea, no one said a thing. Weird.
Not one single person. There was a great video. I don't know who it was who posted it originally, but I just saw it bouncing around on Twitter. And it was like a highlight clip, maybe a minute long, set to a Megan Thee Stallion song, where it was just the players shoving each other and pushing each other and like talking shit in each other's face. It was like a minute long of it. And it was like, it comes out right before the playoffs. And like, this is exactly the kind of energy that you want to have. This is what makes playoff basketball fun. You want them to dislike each other. The Liberty and the Aces hate each other. They hate each other. They want to beat the other team so bad. And it's starting to feel like that's developing here with the Lynx and the Sun, where they're like, you know what? It was good, good game or whatever after the first game. But now it's, all right, I'm tired of you doing the shit that you're doing. You're tired of me doing the shit that I'm doing. And it's been great. It's so much better that way when they don't like each other. I'm all in.
I get so sick of, like, when it comes to the NBA, all we ever do is it's such an indictment on the league because they're all friends and they like each other and they're banana boat brothers and it's the worst and I wish they hated each other like back in the day and oh my god. Then the women give you that and it becomes, oh, they're catty, they're petty, they're bitches. I'm like, no, this is exactly what we like. We like animus. We want all those things. And Courtney Williams said it best. We don't hate each other. This is playoff basketball. I'm sure we'll all be nice to each other when the season is over. But right now, everything is on the line, and it means that much to us. And yes, we're chippy, and yes, we're aggressive. Women are all of those things too, and we love it in men, and we deplore it in men or in women, and I'm sick of it. So I loved watching that game. That was, you know, apart from the first part of that game where I think they both missed 14 shots combined. Both teams.
First quarter, yeah.
It was rough, but it became a great display of basketball and also all of the things that we love, the theater, the drama, the chippiness, the angst, the shoulders, the chest bumps. Like, we live for that, and I loved it.
Courtney Williams, you mentioned, that was the Minnesota's best player in that game.
Yes.
She was outstanding. She was
outstanding.
They don't win that game if she doesn't do what she does. So anytime you watch a series, you start to say in your head, okay, a couple of things are going to happen. There's going to be one game where like a team gets hot from three and they hit an inordinate amount of threes. There's going to be one game where this happens or that happens. You have to account for that when you're trying to figure out who's going to win. Is there going to be a game in this series when Nafisa goes crazy, or have the Sun figured out how to contain her?
I think it's not a question of have the Sun figured out how to contain her. I think it's a little bit of a byproduct of who she played in the first round. The Mercury are not known for their defensive prowess. They're just not. And you're talking about the Sun, who are number one in defensive efficiency, and the number two team being Minnesota. So we knew that this was not going to be some of the most beautiful basketball that we're seeing with the Liberty and Aces, where they're both just trading baskets. And these are the two best defenses in the league. I do think that Fee's going to have a game where she is the reason that they won, or that she is someone that stuffed the box score, but I don't know that it's going to be to the tune of 38 points like we saw against the Mercury, and that's going to be okay too, right? I think she averaged 22, 23 points per game in the regulars, or 21 points per game in the regular season. So I can see a bounce back game for her, but no, not in the same level that we saw against the Mercury, just simply because it's better defense.
Sun in 4 or Sun in 5?
Sun in 4.
Oh, I'm gonna go Lynx in 4. I would love a game 5, but I think Lynx in 4.
You just said you've been trying to talk yourself into.
I have, but I can't get there. I'm looking down the Minnesota Lynx roster, and I'm just seeing, all right, league MVP contender. You have that piece. You have Alana Smith, who all of a sudden her jump shot is going. You have Bridget Carlton, who's gonna at some point hit a big shot in a big moment.
Sure.
You have Courtney Williams, who's playing great. You have Kayla McBride, who I think is, I don't know, one of my 10 favorite players if I put in a list together. Back when I first started watching the league, she was on the Aces, and I was like, yes, this is my sharpshooter. Great. I've just been following her since it. Like, I'm just looking down their roster, and I'm like, man, if they weren't a good defensive team, then I would be a little more worried. But because they were the number one defensive team, I feel like I don't know. I feel like Alyssa Thomas's shoulders not having any shoulder in them is a little concerning to me. And at some point, that goofy push shot she does is not going to go. And I don't know. Lynx in 4, I think. Lynx in 4, but man, I don't know. Who knows?
Okay. So you think they're going to run 3 in a row? That's tough.
They don't need to do 3 in a row now. They just need to do 2 in a row now. That's all they got to do.
It would have been 3, though, last night, and then 2 more in a row. Beating a team 3 times in a row is very tough, but I digress.
All right. Next trophy. The Chief Keef, that's that shit I don't like trophy, which is given out to a player team who does something and we just don't like it. We don't like it. This week's winner, I don't know who do we give this to God for taking Dikembe Mutombo from us? Do we give it to cancer? Fuck cancer.
Fuck cancer.
Horrible. Yeah. Dikembe is gone. One of the all-time great humans. After he passed, I remember I tweeted some version of every Dikembe Mutombo story you ever heard was the best story you had ever heard. He just seemed like just a delightful person in every single facet, on the basketball court, away from the basketball court, in philanthropy, just in general conversation. He just seemed incredible. Did you ever meet him in person? I never met him. You did?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I worked for the Hawks for a few years, and obviously as a former Hawk, he would be around. And, the thing that always stood out to me about Dikembe is, apart from, all of the stories about his humanitarian efforts, which have been well discussed, is that some people, when they sort of have that thing that follows them, you're right, with the finger wag, like some people run from those things. I remember at the time thinking, God, poor Chadwick Boseman. This man, everywhere he goes, people do the Wakanda forever to him.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
man
yeah.
has to be so tired of people actually addressing him like he is, King T'Challa. Like, this is ridiculous. But Dikembe leaned into it in such a way. Like, he was a man of the people, and he would walk around that arena before games, and kids would finger wag him, and he would play into it, and he knew that, like, sort of his larger than life persona belonged to everyone. And I'm probably not saying that right, but he just felt like someone who understood what he meant to people. He understood that the coolest thing that happened to you that week was meeting Dikembe, and he gave that to you. And Dominique Wilkins is the exact same way. Like, the Hawks have these two sort of, legacy players that played for them that really understand what they mean to people, even if they want to just take a piss break, even if it's like, oh, I'm headed to do something. Like, they gave so freely of their time, and he was just, he was like this big lovable giant, and just a wonderful person. And Shanae Agumake, who of course is a friend and a colleague, she was very close with Dikembe, and I had dinner with her on Monday after he died, and she just talked about, the kind of person that he was and how he made you family right away, and he would check on you, and he did that with everyone, and he felt a responsibility to all of Africa, and he was that, he carried a really heavy crown, but he did it with so much joy.
I think if you just look across the history of the NBA, the way that I measure, like, where to, I guess, rank players, it's less about how many championships did they win or whatever, and more just about how involved or meaningful were they in various, like, high points in the league or, like, monumental moments in the league. Like, can you tell the story of the NBA without saying this player's name? Then they're probably not that important. And Mount Mutombo, Dikembe, you had to say his name several times, despite the fact that he never won a championship.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that mattered less than him not winning a championship to his career. I don't think he's remembered any differently if you say, oh yeah, 4-time NBA champion or whatever. Like, it doesn't change anything. But when you're thinking about, like, the magic of Mutombo, you of course have the great, incredible moment when he's on the floor in Seattle holding the ball after Denver has just won. You have that 2001 Sixers team that is just absolutely beloved across history. Like, you could just list so many different things that he has accomplished just on the basketball court alone, and you're like, man, what a life to have lived. What a person to have been. And then you're like, also, by the way, he like opened some hospitals and some schools and some, like, you just are listing all of the other stuff. Holy shit, this is incredible. What a guy.
I think, like, to your point, the depth and range of the tributes, like, he's the only guy that, yes, like, one of the tributes is, like, he opened this hospital in my African village, or Joel Embiid, he inspired me, as this, larger than life persona to pursue basketball. And then you have, who wanna sex Mutombo? And, like, all, like,
what a range.
Right? Like, the range of stories. And it's, like, wholesome. Like, it's not like a creepy, like, ooh, that's a thing we shouldn't talk about. Because sometimes, when we're sort of, memorializing people, or when we're doing their obits, and especially even at SportsCenter. I mean, here's the sad thing, and we had this ready, is that, with something like SportsCenter, we have a whole entire hidden folder of obits, people who are sick or older, sort of ready to go for inevitably when they die. And a lot of times there's a lot of conversations about how much we talk about what. I mean, we literally just did this with Pete Rose, right? How much do we focus on the controversy? How much do we focus on his life and his legacy on the field? And with Mutombo, something like, to me, the greatest Mutombo story, right? Like, who wanna sex Mutombo? Like, that can be a part of the conversation of him, and it's all about his likability, and none of it is, some sort of dark cloud that we have to tiptoe on, some elephant in the room. And I just think to be able to have that sort of broad experience for all kinds of people is cool. It's like a Rorschach test when you think of Mutombo, what you think of: the finger wag, the humanitarian efforts, or who wants to sex Mutombo?
It's the finger wag for me.
Me too.
Just a perfect celebration. Like just turning a defensive thing into a thing you celebrate is incredible. How many players before him had blocked a shot, and then how many players after him have blocked a shot and then done the finger wag to somebody?
Absolutely.
Like it's just great.
It's
just
amazing.
incredible.
Truly.
Next trophy. Step Brothers Catalina Wine Mix Trophy. Given out to the thing we're most excited about for the upcoming week. This week's winner, the finals. The WNBA finals are about to be here. Sadly, it looks like it's going to be the Liberty versus somebody, the Sun or the Lynx. I don't know. But Elle, where are the storylines going to be next week after the finals are done and 2 weeks after the finals are done? What is everybody going to be talking about afterward?
Well,
who's holding the trophy? Who did what?
Man, I think that it's going to be that the Liberty finally have returned the championship title to New York. I think it's going to be about a potential end to what could have been a dynastic run. I mean, again, when we talk about the Liberty and how many missed opportunities they've had, the Sun have been in a couple of finals over the last 7 years. This will be their third one, because I do think that they're going to win this series, and the end of an era. Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna Bonner, and Bree Jones are all free agents after this year. So I think we'll very quickly get into free agency. Kelsey Mitchell has to make a decision about Indiana. She's already said, like, I love what we built here, but I also have to be selfish. So I think we're going to sort of be staring down the futures of some of these teams that have been consistently in the postseason and what that looks like. And then, of course, awaiting a potential announcement from Diana Taurasi. Sources tell me she wanted to wait until the end of the season to make a decision, and didn't want to tell anyone what that was beforehand, so as not to steal the thunder of the players still in it, but that maybe there was some farewell dinners that have already happened. So I think that, that's kind of the story. The New York Liberty, can they repeat? Are the Sun over? What do the Fever look like? And will they be able to add some free agents? And then the end of an era in Diana.
I think DeWanna and Kelsey should go to Las Vegas. That's what I feel like. Just go. Just come on over. Come on over and let's see it.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because you and your wife are obviously very close and wonderful. Would you be impacted? Would you want to play with your wife, or would you want to bounce? Like, if you're DeWanna and AT and you're both free agents, are you trying to do a package deal sitch, or do you want to separate?
We could not play together. We couldn't. We have a basketball court in our driveway, and we play 2-on-2 against either the twins or like one of the twins and their younger brother. And so it's always me and Laramie versus them. And we are terrible as a team. We never know what the other player is going to do. We just argue. There's no chemistry at all. We're like Shaq and Kobe minus all of the talent and skill, and we're just fussing at each other. I told this story a couple of weeks ago when we played. It was the first time that one of the twins dunked it, and he dunked it on Laramie, like 2 steps in, rose up, and I just watched him go up, and he just kept going up and up, and then 2-hand dunked it on a. I was like, oh my god, this is a disaster. This is so bad. But no, we couldn't play together. It just it doesn't work. Can't believe I'm gonna have to watch the New York Liberty raise the trophy. Ugh.
Yeah, I think so. Yep, and Ellie the elephant dance all over your grave.
Oh my god. It was really fun and great to like watch them when they weren't a threat, and then now that they're going to beat my Aces, I hate them. I just I sports hate them. You know what I mean? I just mentioned Shaq and Kobe. I felt the same way about them when they kept running into San Antonio in the playoffs, and I was like, God, I fucking hate these guys. Derek Fisher, Rick Fox, Devin George, all of them. I felt like when I'm watching the games now, I'm like, man, fucking Breanna Stewart, I hate her. Sabrina, I hate, because they're just so good, and they're gonna win the championship, and it's gonna be miserable. It's going to suck.
Well, you at least can dry your tears with those 2 other championships that you won. No one feels bad for you, Boston Celtic. I'm going to start calling you Celtic. Nobody believes in us. Nobody sees us coming. Shut up. It's been real good for you. You're fine.
It has been, but I wanted 3. I wanted 4. I wanted 6. I wanted 9. I just wanted to never lose again.
Yeah, they needed to make a few more moves, I think, and I think the Aces will realize that they didn't really replace Candace Parker. They didn't really they made some very medial moves to get better and have more depth. And it appears that Becky Hammon only trusts Tiffany Hayes off the bench, and so they're going to have to do a better job next year of doing that, because I think that they've sort of over-indexed what they've got around Asia.
Elle, this was wonderful. I was so happy you were able to join us and be on this show. Very thankful. Everybody, make sure you go subscribe to the Elle Duncan Show. Go watch Elle on every single TV thing on ESPN. Thank you so much, Elle. This was great. You're the best.
Thank you so much. And always remember, you were forged in fire. You were built for this. You got this. You can do this.
Oh, goodness. All right. Thanks a bunch. That was great. Elle was great. Zuri, you want to do the little trophies?
Let's do the little trophies. I can say that? Am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you could say it this week and this week alone.
Yeah, okay, all right. One time.
These ones change each week and are situation specific. They're for the smaller storylines that we want to mention, but don't need to get all the way into. My first little trophy. This is the Matthew McConaughey and the Gentleman. There's only one rule in this fucking jungle. When the lion's hungry, he eats. Trophy. To Victor Wembanyama, who gained 25 pounds this offseason. Oh, let's fucking go. You guys are toast. You guys are so toast.
I like celebrating gaining weight. I gain about 25 pounds every offseason, and it's just nice to have a trophy for it.
We finally have a representation, Zuri.
We do. Shout out Wemby. My first little trophy is the Jason Derulo Want Me trophy to Ben Simmons. I don't even like that song, but this goes to Ben Simmons. So I don't really like Jason Derulo. I don't really like that song. But this goes to Ben Simmons for saying at Media Day, I think people forget me as a player when I'm healthy. I can play basketball. I'm pretty good. Which begs the question, why did we forget Ben Simmons? You tell us why we forgot why you're good. I think there's an addendum to that. But he wants people to want him, and we support it.
My next little trophy. This is the Kendrick Lamar beat your ass and hide the Bible if God's watching trophy. To Zion, who got up and walked out of a media presser when he was asked why Kendrick Lamar was not on his summer playlist. To be clear, he was joking around when he got up and left. He was not mad that this person asked this question. He was just goofing around. But still, I just wanted to hear that song. What a fucking good song. It's still good. It's still good.
It's still going to hit at the Super Bowl, too. Is there a song that if someone asked you why it wasn't on your summer playlist, you'd walk out of a Six Trophies recording or a movie? Is there one that just wouldn't work?
No, I can't think of one. I can't think of a one. There's not one.
Man of the people. My second little trophy is the Jason Statham. Nothing kills me. I'm immune to 179 different types of poison. I know because I ingested them all at once when I was deep undercover in an underground poison-ingesting crime ring trophy. That trophy goes to James Harden, who also at Media Day said of the Clippers offense, it's going to involve a lot of me. And nothing kills James Harden. He's going to get his shots up. Doesn't matter how old he is, doesn't matter who's on his team. His will to shoot the basketball cannot be killed. So I wanted to do one from Crank with Jason Statham, but there's nothing that I wanted to repeat into a microphone from that movie. So I
think there's a very quiet argument to be made that Jason Statham in Spy, the best role he's ever played.
Very, very funny.
He's so funny.
Yeah.
He just keeps doing the same bit over and over and over again. It's great.
Angry, hilarious guy with a weird past. Shout out Melissa McCarthy as well.
My last little trophy. This is the Shinzo Tanaka in Bloodsport. For 2,000 years, knowledge passed from father to son trophy. That trophy goes to LeBron and Bronny, who shared their first media day together. They just were sitting there chit-chatting it up, getting interviewed together. What an incredible, beautiful, wonderful moment. Yeah. I was so happy that they got to share that.
I think Jasmine mentioned this last week, but he might only play 2 weeks. So let's just enjoy this.
Care. He should stay. He should stay in there. I think Rookie of the Year for Bronny. I'm calling it now.
Yeah.
Rookie of the Year.
MVP. Yeah. We'll see. My final little trophy is the Jason Bourne. When what you love gets taken from you, you want to know the truth trophy. That goes to Jakob Poeltl, who this week told reporters, I think we all know that we're not going to go and attack the championship this year. It makes no sense for us. It makes no sense for us to try and win every single game as much as we can and sacrifice development. He's just speaking the truth. Sometimes you got to hear it. Jakob Poeltl has never won a championship, so I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from. But when what you love gets taken from you, you want to know the truth.
It makes no sense for us to try to win every single game. That's a thing he said.
Yeah.
I don't know that I agree with that.
Coming off a season where Jontay Porter bet against himself and the team. So maybe not the right team to be saying that about.
Oh my God. We did it again, Zuri.
Woo!
Another perfect episode. We did it without Jason this time, too.
Jason, yeah.
With Elle. She sounded like an adult. That's what she sounded like.
Yeah.
Compared to me and Jason, who sound like 14-year-olds
just so much
screaming at each other. It was like when Helen Mirren showed up in the Fast and the Furious franchise. That's what just happened.
Yeah.
Elle Duncan on 6 trophies is Helen Mirren in the Fast and the Furious.
Everyone gets a turn on 6 trophies. So much dignity and class brought to this show. And if you're listening, longtime listeners, we don't know when we're going to return to that. So definitely appreciate Elle Duncan being on the show. And hopefully we can have her again sometime soon.
We close every episode just by saying the names of underappreciated old basketball players with no context at all while the theme music carries us out. Zuri, will you play the theme music, please? Oh, Zuri, will you also say some underappreciated old basketball players?
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. I'm Shea Serrano. That's Zuri Irvin. We had Elle Duncan guest co-hosting. Producer Zuri, I guess I got to say your name again. In the shadows making the noises. Wow. You did a lot of work this week, Zuri.
You know what? I earned it.
See y'all. See y'all next Wednesday. I'm doing famous L's again in honor of our guests every week. Elle McPherson.
I'm doing the 2012-2013 Los Angeles Lakers. Not a team that won much, but a team that's close to my heart. Steve Blake.
Elle Woods from Legally Blonde.
Ooh. Oh. A lot of class. Anton Jameson. Laker legend, Anton Jameson.
Elle DeBarge. I'm cheating a little bit. It's just E-L, not E-L-L-E.
Yeah.
But still.
We'll take it. Jody Meeks.
Let's go. Elle Driver from Kill Bill.